Well, hello there, fellow geeks and geekettes, and welcome to yet another part of my Focusing on Artists video series, in which I focus on artists. And no, I haven't decided to fight Superman. I've only grown tired of my, growing and growing hair, and since all the barbershops are closed, I had to do it myself. And, yeah. In addition to this, I don't have to wear the bloody beanie all the time when I'm making videos. Since it's getting hotter and hotter outside, so that's another pro of that particular thing. However, for this episode, I have decided to focus on Lee Bermejo, or Lee Bermejo, whatever you want to pronounce his name. Simply because, well, firstly, I love his art, but secondly, because he is one of the most memorable comic book artists of our time. He is one of the artists at whose art you look and you instantly recognize that it's Bermejo, right? And in this day and age, I consider it quite rare. He isn't one of the vanilla artists who just, don't stand out from the crowd by anything, really. And mostly he is, of course, known for collaborating with the writer Brian Azzarello on books such as The Joker, or Luthor, which I don't have a physical copy of, or the more recent Batman Damned from the DC Black Label imprint, which I had the book 2 or the second issue on hand. But also he drew and wrote his own graphic novel about Batman called Batman Noel, which is basically a Batman DC Comics retelling of the Charles Dickens novella A Christmas Carol, which I quite enjoyed, and I should get it in a collected edition as well. Now, other than that, other than collaborating with Brian Azzarello, he does a lot of cover art, he did one of the variant covers for Action Comics issue 1000, which I needed to get for my Wall of Fame. And yes, it is true that what suits Lee Bermejo the most is the dark and gritty atmosphere and dark/gothic gritty characters like Batman. But even when he decides to draw something like Superman, you instantly recognize his art, and you know that he's really one of the masters of the craft, because it is simply beautiful. But also what I had on hand was the Astonishing X-Men. I believe this is from Volume 3 of the Astonishing X-Men, issue 25, written by Warren Ellis. And this is, his interpretation of the X-Men Wolverine here. So, whatever character he draws, be it Batman, or the Joker here, or Harley Quinn, right? Be it Wolverine and the other X-Men, or Superman, the man can do it, and you will instantly recognize it. I like very much when an artist mixes different media, when the artist just doesn't simply and only use a pencil and then an ink and then maybe a colorist colors his artwork on computer, which I find quite lazy. It's quicker, it's easier these days when, the production until recently used to be, a lot of comic books were published, and you had your artwork done very quickly. So I understand the use of computer for artwork, both interior and exterior cover art, because it's faster and it's easier, and it gives you more opportunities for other things that you probably wouldn't be able to do by hand. Still, I will always prefer really hand-drawn artwork. But as I said, I love when an artist mixes media, which means that, and you can see it on his art, he mixes pencils and inks and brush and paint and computer artwork. So it's a very similar thing to what Simon Bisley does. He mixes even more media, such as spray paint, and time after time it seems as if he were using stickers and things like that. So really, this is, I think, one of the main things that make Lee Bermejo's art stick out from the crowd very much indeed. And in addition to this, his use of what seems to me to be a paint, but I'm not sure if it is. Might be a mixture of paint and computer artwork. It sometimes reminds me a little bit of a stylized version of Alex Ross's art, which of course is something completely different. It's a completely different level, and I'm going to have an entire video devoted to Alex Ross, obviously. But when you look at it, just, there is something to it. There's something from Alex Ross in it, and I think that if I found, or if I looked for an interview with Lee Bermejo, I would really find out that he was, at least to a certain extent, inspired by Alex Ross. Now, Lee Bermejo's art has become so worldwide known and popular that like toy makers like DC Collectibles, which has now been renamed to DC Direct again, they made an action figure based on his artwork of Batman, and it's even called Lee Bermejo's Batman, because it belongs to a series of action figures that were actually inspired by different artists, right? So this is a Batman action figure interpretation, as drawn by Lee Bermejo. So he did the sketch of the action figure, and then they sculpted it and made it into an action figure, right? So there are action figures of DC characters by, for instance, I've got Greg Capullo, I've got Jay Lee, Jim Lee, obviously, and famous artists like that. Now, there are also action figures and statues inspired by the art of Alex Ross, and even Simon Bisley, not specifically from this particular line, the DC Comics designer series, but in the history of toy making and statue making, there have been action figures and statues made as the image of this or that particular comic book artist. So this is one of the proofs that Lee Bermejo really has become one of the, well, comic book artist icons, and not only can we enjoy his artwork in 2D form, be it in comic books or comic book covers, prints, original artwork that we can frame and put on our wall, but we can also enjoy his art in 3D, in 3 dimensions, in the form of statues and action figurines, which I appreciate even more. Because you can, if you look at it, it's a very well made action figure, and it looks very good on your shelf, especially if you for instance, if you displayed. They made, I don't have it, but they also made, in this same series, they made Superman by Lee Bermejo. So if you displayed an action figure, or, inspired by Lee Bermejo, with this cover standing next to it, well, that would be a bitching display, wouldn't it? Right, so that's it for today's episode, the second episode of my Focusing on Artists video series. I was focusing on Lee Bermejo, one of my favorite comic book artists, and I will say goodbye to you with Batman Damned Book 2 in my hand. Because it's a really beautiful cover. Look at the Harley Quinn there, looking all kinky and stuff. Right, so that would be all from me, my friends. Feel free to share your own favorite comic book artists. Feel free to leave a comment, share this video. Feel free to dislike it, feel free to like it, feel free to type anything in the comments down below. Well, as long as it's, at least a little bit intelligent. But that would be really all from me, my friends. See you soon, and bye.